on ITV. Now that's some hat-trick.
3 great events, 3 ways to watch. Kicks for free on TV, mobile and online.
Unemployment now stands at 1.8 million and is rising by 1,500 a day. However, there are still 600,000 vacancies that are currently waiting to be filled. And the government has made extra money available to help those who lose their jobs to retrain.
Firstly, that we're announcing £100 million extra to help those people who lose their jobs to retrain and get the skills they need for new jobs.
2 people who've had to rethink their careers are joiner Andy Rose and forklift truck driver Simon Spencer. Both plan to turn their hobby into a career and become kickboxing instructors. They've lined up jobs subject to completing a rigorous 6-month training course. But father of 3 Andy has already hit a problem. He's been refused the government funding he'd need to do the retraining despite being jobless for 4 months.
I've got to be unemployed for 18 months before I can get on the course. But if I'd just come out of prison or had a drink or drugs problem and there were a big list of things like that, I'd have got straight on the course. I'm keen and willing to do this course and I'm not allowed to do it. I've worked out it'd be 2010 the time I'm allowed to be on the course. I can't stay on dole till 2010.
The Department of Works and Pensions say that their first priority is to help people find a job using the skills they already have, but that there is flexibility in the system to provide funding for people like Andy, and are planning to meet him to look at his situation. With previous management experience in his family business, unemployed business graduate Paul is finding it hard to come to terms with the fact that his degree isn't a passport to a junior managerial position. Despite more than a year without success, he's still reluctant to take advice from career coach Denise to lower his sights initially.
I'm not sure whether me and Denise are on the same page sort of thing. I mean, the jobs, I sent her 2 jobs, the one I mentioned yesterday, one about supervisor for Debenhams and one is a visual manager for Debenhams, which sounded really interesting. And sort of the reply to that was that maybe these roles would be stretching my skills. But, you know, supervisor I don't feel is, you know, beyond my reach. I think that's where I want at least to be starting at.
With Paul still reluctant to work his way up from the shop floor to a management job, Denise has arranged for him to meet retail manager Colin McDermott, who did exactly that without a degree.
Getting in through the graduate scheme is one way to do it, absolutely, but there are so many other ways to do it. You know, I didn't start in the graduate scheme, I started as a temporary partner. So you can still get to where you want to go, probably in the same time frame as well.
Okay. Sounds interesting, Colin. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, well, it's something you know, I wanted to consider, because with the graduate schemes it was always the part of the training that I wanted. So what I would be concerned about is if I do get stuck on the shop floor that I wouldn't be able to progress up the system. Is that a concern that you think would that be a problem?
I suppose you would only get stuck in a system if you allowed yourself to do that.
According to Denise, job seekers have to do more than change their expectations. With 70% of vacancies not being advertised, they should be networking and knocking on doors.
What most people think is the way you get a job is to see something advertised, apply, and you almost like plucked from the chorus line. You know, they're going to see your CV, think you're absolutely wonderful, bring you along for interview, and then you get the job. But very few jobs are filled that way.
Shireen, our other job seeker, is doing exactly what Denise recommends. But although she's been contacting potential employers, getting the word out that she's keen and available, her approach has yet to bear fruit.
I really don't know what I'm going to do. Every day is, you try and put it to the back of your mind, because I've been paid my redundancy, it's taken the pressure off a little bit. But I have to get a job. Oh, you know, what does one do to get a job?
Remember the brick factory struggling against a drop-off in orders? Managing Director Linton had hoped to cling on for another year and see the recession out. But since we first filmed, the situation has got even worse. Last Friday, he called the workers together for some bad news.
Thanks for all coming in today. As you know, we've all tried our very best to get through these difficult times. I've seen an insolvency practitioner yesterday and taken advice from them, and the advice is that we close the company down, and we're going to close the company at the end of today. It is like a bit of bereavement. I have had, 18 fantastic years running Linton Brick, and it's been a tremendous pleasure and privilege to do that. And I've had 1 year which has been absolutely awful, and so in context it's been a positive thing, but obviously it doesn't feel very positive now.
But for job seeker Shireen, a glimmer of hope. She's found employment working for a radio station in their sales department. Although she's no longer a manager and is having to work her way up once again, at least she's happy to have a job for Christmas.
My advice to anyone who has been made redundant at this time and with the economic situation the way that it is just to keep on trying, keep on knocking on doors, keep on phoning the recruitment agencies, getting the newspapers. It's not easy. You do have to knock a lot of doors, but at the end of the day, a job will become available.
And Paul too has finally lowered his sights and won a foothold in the world of high street retail as a temporary sales assistant.
It's a start. It's more important. It's something I can get my teeth into, and maybe something will come of it at the end of the contract, or if not, at least it's something to put on my CV that I've been successful enough to work for a company as big as Boots.
So, partial success then for our two job seekers. Today the government said their job is to make the recession as short and painless as possible. But with all the indicators suggesting things are going to get worse before they get better, there's not much room for pre-Christmas cheer for either job seekers or employers.
If you stand up against the tide and don't cut your staff when everybody else does, you'll go bust and your business will cease to exist. So you end up wishing to protect your position by actually being the first to act in cutting costs and cutting spending. Survival takes over from prosperity.
There's more information on our website, itv.com/tonight. Coming up on Friday, the fear factor.
I've had enough. Take it.
Okay, that's fine.
Former Apprentice contestant Rafe Baggio looks at why phobias are on the rise.
Just look away.
I don't
concentrate on me. Really. I don't think I could do this.
And attempts to cure his own debilitating claustrophobia.
And it's just that constant fear that I'm going to be stuck here and not be able to ever come out again.
We've live international football coverage from the Olympic Stadium in Berlin. It's Germany versus England, 7:30 Wednesday night, right here on ITV1. Next, it's back to Corrie, where a